we're ready to start. I'm Tom Robb. I'm past chair of the Reading Vocabulary Intersection, which is only, what, 2.5 years old or so. So we're just getting started. If you're interested in reading or vocabulary building, please join us as a member. And we have 4 presentations today. And actually, I swapped 1 and 2, but they didn't save it seems. So I'm just going to do mine first because that way it makes the swapping of computers a little easier. And then Derek Hansen is here talking about, actually, it's been a long project. How many years have you been working on Fluency?
2 years.
2 years, yeah. It's a very interesting software. And then Hetal Ascher is back in China and will be with us via live link, even though it's the middle of the night there. She got permission, so she didn't have to go to school the next day, so she could stay up all night. And Charles Brown is in Tokyo, and I have an MP4 video of that. So this is really a multimedia presentation. So we might as well start, and I'll see if I can get my slides going. Oh, it's going to take this long between slides.
Oh, that was, I think that ended your slideshow, so you have a different slideshow you need to share.
It's this. Oh, that's it. Thank you. I put this slide on my own PowerPoint, but then I showed the wrong PowerPoint. And now I can't see anything because all I got is the, I have to minimize the Zoom somehow. James, do you know how to minimize Zoom on the Mac?
Here, this, can you stop share?
Yeah, that's what I was afraid. I have to stop share. Wait, go here.
Yeah, this one.
Okay,
And then you can share a different one.
okay. So I tried to put them both together on one PowerPoint, so I didn't have to swap PowerPoints, but then it didn't work as planned. Okay, so this is the one that I no longer need. And the other one is hiding somewhere. I just need to cancel that. Just need to go. This one. There.
Okay.
Okay. Full screen. No, there's supposed to be something down here, which isn't here. Okay.
And then
It's
share
okay.
screen.
Okay, now I gotta share a screen again.
Yes.
Okay, back to here. And
Yeah, that's the
share
button.
screen. And it's see the PowerPoint.
Yeah.
It's here. Oh, it's this one here.
No, it's not. That's the old one. That one slide.
Wait,
And then
there it is. Okay, got it.
we're good to go.
And now we are getting it. This is the wrong one. I'm just gonna have to close this because it's just getting in the way.
Just say, don't say,
Don't save.
and now go to PowerPoint and see if it comes up.
And PowerPoint.
Yes, great.
And there it is with that in the middle.
And
Move that.
Yeah, move that to the side. Okay, maybe way down here. Okay, Fine, all right, so this is about extensive reading and what free resources there are. And, okay, so just a basic outline of what extensive reading is. The basic premise of extensive reading is they have to read extensively, which means they have to read a lot. And normally that means it has to be easy to read or they can't read a lot. And they have to read quickly because otherwise they can't read a lot. And little dictionary use, because if it's so difficult, they have to keep looking up words in dictionary, they aren't going to read a lot. It's going to be very slow. And then also, it must be enjoyable. Otherwise, they're going to stop reading. They need to choose what to read. Otherwise, how can you guarantee that it's enjoyable? You can't decide for them what they like. And there has to be a variety of materials so they can choose something that's enjoyable. Okay, so these are the basic premises. And we aren't saying that extensive reading is the only thing students need to do. Balanced reading is necessary. In other words, they need to do intensive reading, but basically teachers do this too much, okay? This is putting the brain in gear, thinking, memorizing, doing activities and so forth. But that can be done mainly in class, whereas extensive reading can be done outside of class. So once you got them into doing extensive reading, you have a system set up and they can check it, you can check that they're doing it and so forth. They just borrow books, take them home and read them, and it doesn't take away from your class time. Okay, but if students are online, how can they access graded readers? Okay, well, there are some graded readers that are online, but actually not too many. And xreading.com, how many people have heard of xreading.com? Not too many. Okay, it is an online site that has 1,000 or more graded readers that students can read online. And they can take a quiz, you can see how long they spent on them and so forth. It costs a little money, but it's something like maybe $18 for either 6 months or a year, I can't remember, and it's cheaper for people in poor countries. So Paul Goldberg, the president, is more interested in seeing the people use it than making a bundle. ErCentral.com is something that Rob Waring, one of the Extensive Reading Foundation executive board members and an author of a number of graded reader series, he has this site which is completely free. Students can be registered, it has a tracking system. It doesn't have graded readers, it has graded readings, okay? Shorter ones, but they're in multiple levels. And so students can choose the level that is of interest to them. They see pictures of each of the available readings. They choose ones that they like. They can read it, they can listen to it, they can take a quiz, and you can see the results. So they don't have to be in a classroom. Freegradedreaders.com or OR4F is online reading for fluency.org. Both of these have reading material. Free Graded Readers has some graded readers that have been donated by some graded reader authors I know that have copyright material that's out of copyright, things they published a long time ago, so forth, but they're still good reads. And there are other sites. But the problem is you shouldn't try to use authentic material. And actually, I'm misusing this word because we say that graded readers is one kind of authentic material. But what I mean is English material media is intended for native speakers. And it's just much too difficult. There are too many words they don't know. 80% of the language that you read, it doesn't matter where it is or even here, comes in the first 2,000 words of English, the frequency words of English. So they need to know those very well, and they're almost there. But that other 20%, that's the part that has the meaning that they don't know. And so if they don't know those, they aren't going to get very far. Okay. And so how do you get them to read? Well, some basic principles. You need to provide material that is at or lower than their current reading level. The material, of course, must be interesting, so you need that variety of topics. You need to require them to do a specific amount of reading, because if you don't, if you're just trying to say, well, here's the books, go read, Some will, but a lot won't, okay? You're English teachers, which means you like English, right? I mean, well, you're native speakers, many of you, so there's no problem. But even overseas, the English teachers, of course, are very fluent. And so it's not a problem for them. Their students are there because it's a required subject. They prefer to be somewhere else. So if they aren't going to read unless there's some teeth in it and you can somehow check that they've actually done the reading. And of course, if what they're reading is something they like and they can continue to read material that's at their level that they like, they'll continue to read. But you got to get them caught on reading or nothing is going to happen. So you need some means of tracking how much they read. They will read. Some sort of record keeping, self-reports, quick 50-word summaries or something. And you need motivational strategies, competitions, for example, between groups in the class or sharing reading experiences, speaking in small groups, not frontal one to the whole class because it takes forever. They're too embarrassed and they have to speak English, which is not so great. But if they're in a small group and it's with people that speak the same language, then they can do it in their L1. Of course, in the United States, that's a little more difficult than overseas where you have monolingual groups. So here are some good sites. And okay, so here's ErCentral.com. And this is the top page. And you can see it has a student section and a teacher section. And there's a lot of useful data there for teachers. So here you can see the choice of books that's at level 7. And so each of them has a little circle saying what the level is, like 7.60. And the reason it's in a decimal place like that is when they take a quiz, depending on the quiz results, it actually changes the difficulty level. So it's dynamic. It goes up and down depending on how well the students appear to understand it. So here's another one at 8.0. And so this is just the first page of many pages. You can see at the top, it says 1, 2, and then more. You can go to the last page. So, and here is a choice of 1, and it shows you it's the comprehension of how the students have rated the comprehension, difficulty, and enjoyability. And then you can read the text. And okay, like this. And this one actually was donated by Compass Media, which makes graded readers, but it's a shorter reading. So in order to manage the students, you can register your institution, download the data, and then do a bulk registration of all of them. It's quite easy to do. And they have an online graded text editor, which you can use if you want to simplify material that you have down to their level. And so here is a text. I'm sorry, it's a little small. I don't dare make it larger because that'll screw up the rest of it. But you can see all the little red on there. This is set at the Zephyr A1 level. And so if you set this at A1, those are all the words that they wouldn't know, which is way too much. If you set it at A2 though, now you can see there's less red. And if you did it B1, there'd be less. So you find something that looks like it's modifiable because there isn't too much there, and then you can do whatever you need to do, change the meanings of words and so forth, delete part of the text, whatever, to make it understandable text. And this is what the report looks like. It's not as nice as I would like it to be, but Rob hasn't taken my advice yet. You could color code this and show the ones that have read above what the requirement is below and so forth, and make it a lot more visually attractive. And this is Free Graded Readers, which is a site that I have made. You can see the 5-finger rule there, which is something that you can tell students to use when they're deciding if a book is too difficult. Just open a book to a page, assuming the book has, say, 150 to 250 words on the page, and count how many words they don't know. And if they get above 3 fingers, if there are 4 or 5 words they don't know, it's too difficult, you go to something else. It's a rough guide, but it works for students. Voice of America and the British Council both have sites for English learning. And this is the Voice of America one. This is a much higher level than, say, you need for A1 or A2 beginners overseas. And but it does have at the top there, it says beginning level, intermediate level, advanced level, and even those are subdivided. So there's quite a bit of material here. There are videos, there are transcripts, and the information changes. There's news which changes very frequently. And here, this is their archive of podcasts, actually, or here, this one, Dr. Heidegger's experiment by Nathaniel Hawthorne. And you can see the whole transcript of it. You could listen to it as well. All right. So how can you use articles? Well, you can instruct the students to all read the same article, but I mean, or to select ones that are of interest to them, because the past articles are easily accessible. And if they're doing the same article, someone can be appointed to provide definitions for the difficult words via WhatsApp or some other SMS device. So the students don't all have to look them up. Then you can have them read something which is a little more difficult than the level because you've given them vocabulary help. Individual use, however, guarantees that each one does the work, so there are no free riders, which is a bit of a problem. What I mean, it takes a lot more time this way, but no one is going to a free rider means they don't do the work, right? But they appear to have done studied it. Okay, and now this is a placement test that's available. And this is, I didn't even mention what publisher it is. I believe it's Macmillan. And it has, this is the British Council placement test. And you choose the level, and then there's, once you know your level, there's all these different web pages that you can see for speaking, listening, reading, and writing. And then here's a list of the topics. This is the British Council page for children. It has very simple material. And this one here is, this is British culture. So football means that little round ball there that you see. But anyway, on bullying, there's a lot of useful information. And this is the teen site. And here, here's the A1 reading. They have practical readings as well that for daily life rather than just stories. So this is the UK trains. And here, this is rather interesting because this says, the top one says a walk in the forest, parentheses A2. The same story is there in 3 different levels, B1 and B2 as well. And so you could have them read the A2 story and then the B1 and the B2. And slowly they'd be able to pick up some of the vocabulary and they'd understand from the previous time they read it, how it's scaffolded and so forth. So there's also listening. And this is the adult site here. But here are some of the common problems with online sites, okay? If you use an online site like this, there's no student registration or tracking available, which means you have to find some way to track what they have done. Often it's not true with the British Council and the VOA site. Sometimes it says it's free, but actually only part of the material is there. It's just bait to get you to pay for the full site. But sometimes it's free for online access, but you can't make printed copies of it if you wanted to make them to distribute to the students. And very often the material is targeted to native speaking children. So the vocabulary, idioms, and cultural references there that our students would not understand. And the last one pertains to something like Gutenberg.org, which has a huge archive of material, which is all out of copyright. And most of it's really, really old English, okay? Sometimes I have trouble understanding some of the stories there. I was trying to find a good mystery novel to bring up to date, and I gave up. Now, this is a site by Dr. Lee, Rong-Chan Lee. Do you know him? He sometimes sponsored, last year he sponsored people to TESOL. But he has a lot of small readings like this, and they're all very, very American culture oriented, but they're free. And he even has an app for them, so you can read them on the phone. You know, there's no tracking involved. And he has ads, which is how not how he makes money. The money that he gets from the ads goes to either TESOL, California TESOL, or international TESOL to help support teachers to attend conferences. So that's one reason why it's good to patronize the site. And then for teachers, this is the Extensive Reading Foundation site, erfoundation.org. And it's one-stop shopping about extensive reading. So there's this one here. What is extensive reading? We have an ER bibliography with about 700 annotated articles, research articles. And then this repeats sort of what I just showed, the useful sites, reading material. Material for you if you want to, like the ER toolkit has, let's see, the ER guides are separate now. Let me just go to, no, I can't, because that means I have to go to another browser. And anyway, the ER toolkit has a lot of useful material for proselytizing to other people about extensive reading, basically, but it also has downloadable booklets that you can use to give to your students so they can record the reading and so forth. Evidence that extensive reading works with just brief citations about the various skills and what has been shown to actually work. So how much writing can improve with extensive reading or listening and so forth. And then, here are the guides. These are available in multiple languages. And of course, you just need the English guide. But if you are overseas, the English teacher, him or herself, of course, is proficient in English and doesn't need a guide in the native language. But if you're trying to convince the rest of the staff or the principal, then these can be useful. And this is my own site too, MReader it's called, which doesn't have any reading material. It's quizzes on 8,000 graded readers. And we have about 100,000 students. Well, we did. Now we're down to about 60,000 thanks to COVID, but it's a free site. And this is what a student's personal page looks like. Every time they take a really easy quiz, because we don't want to test them on the book too much, because then they read slower because they want to remember all the facts. Okay, this is open book, but the basic thing is ask easy questions so you can see that they read the book. Okay, and actually it turns out that the students really enjoy this site. It's very gamified. Every time they pass a quiz, they get the cover of the book on that, so they like to collect the covers. And there's badges. There's a progress bar at the bottom that shows how close they are to the goal. After you've read so many books at your current level, it promotes you to the next level, and so on and so forth. And here is the teacher's page, the class page. And as you see, it's color-coded. So the green there means they've reached the target number of words. The orange means they're halfway there. On the left side, the red means if it's really dark red, it means it's been 5 weeks since the last time they took a quiz. The pink means 1 week, and it gets gradually darker. Yeah, okay. And there's X reading, which I've already explained. There's a downloaded form that you can just upload the students' names. And here are the links to the information. And I need to make this available. I don't think I did, but I'll give you a tiny URL by the end of the session that contains this PowerPoint. Oh, okay. So that's all. Thank you very much. Eric? Eric, please. So, just a moment. Okay.
You'll have to stop sharing your screen.
Yeah.
It'll be set.
Okay, stop share.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh. I'm sharing the wrong screen. Almost there. Sorry, guys. Okay. I think we're there. Does that
Yes.
look okay?
Mhm.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Good morning. My plane yesterday, I missed a connecting flight, and so we got in like 2:30, and I'm wearing the same clothes I was wearing yesterday. So I normally would have dressed up a little more, but anyway, I'm here and happy to be here. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some tools that are and that can be used to augment English language learners' ability to understand texts and also build vocabulary. And so just quickly, I'm a professor at Brigham Young University, and I create interactive games and experiences, especially for middle school and high school youth. And the language learning thing has been something I've been engaged in just a couple of years, and I've really enjoyed it. I work with others on a team. We have a startup company called LoomView, and we actually have a booth downstairs, and our nice poster will arrive sometime later today, but you can look for us somewhere. We would love to chat in person about what we've been doing, and I'll show a little bit of that. So I want to talk a little bit about what the academic research calls glosses. So these are like, in this picture, you can see a little gloss here where you mouse over a word and then you see the, some supplemental information. In textbooks, you might have bolded words and maybe there's some glossary at the end of the chapter or on the side, annotations. And there's been a lot of research done on glosses, and basically the research shows a few things. So they do increase vocabulary acquisition for two main reasons. One is that people notice certain words more often instead of just skipping them. And the other one is they actually learn about the meaning of the word with the gloss. And then they increase reading comprehension. So as you're reading a text, then you can make sense of it better with these aids. And then the last one, they reduce frustration. And this is especially true with more difficult texts. So if you think of an English language learner in, say, a science class or a social studies class, they're often getting assigned a text that's far above their level, unlike the extensive reading we just heard about. And so glosses can be particularly helpful when you sort of are forced to give them something that's above their level. That's kind of the main need. And there's some other key research findings. So they've done some studies looking at, there's different types of information you can give. So let's say you're a native Spanish speaker learning English, then you can give a translation of the English word just to your native language. That would be an L1 translation, or you could give an English simplified definition. And it turns out the translation to your native language is a better way. It's read more often. Students seem to learn it better. So that's preferred, although definitions can be helpful as well. The students that benefit the most from glosses are the ones that would not understand the text without the gloss, right? So the ones that are in most need of that aid. And then text comprehension questions. So if, and this is more for intensive reading, but if you have an assignment, you're trying to have people understand, I mean, think of our science teacher, trying to understand maybe some concepts related to your science content. If you have comprehension questions with the texts, then the students will engage actually with the glosses more because they'll try to understand those, and and then that aid is just right there in context. And then it also, for the vocabulary learning part of it, if there's a way that you can like save the words and study them explicitly through flashcards and quizzes, that can supplement some of the implicit learning that might occur while they're reading. So let's go over a few different types of tools. I picked ones that won't be spotlighted in the other presentations. So the first category is browser extensions. We actually at LoomView, our first stab at this was to create a browser extension, but we ended up going a different route because there's some problems with browser extensions in the classroom context. You have to get everyone to download it. You can't use it on a mobile app. But they might be useful for many of you. There's a lot of different tools that will let you sort of highlight a word and it'll show a definition of it, or well, let me just show you a couple. So some fun ones that I think are kind of useful. So there's ones that will let you see at the bottom of movies. So you can watch on Netflix or YouTube. There's various ones you can just search for, language Chrome extensions in the Chrome extension store. But they'll, just like is shown here, you can kind of get extra information about the subtitles, which is kind of fun. And then another example would be Toucan. They have, like if you're reading a text in this case, they're imagining you're learning Spanish in this one, and then they would have some words that are sort of flipped into that other language in what's called the diagonal weave, and then you can get additional information there. So those would, they can work. They're a little difficult sometimes to get your IT department to install on the machines and like approvals and all that, but there's a place for them. Another strategy is to use like an immersive reader, and the best one out there is the Microsoft Immersive Reader. And what this does is if you have a text that's in any kind of like in a Microsoft thing on the cloud, you can open up the Immersive Reader, or if you're using the browser, their Edge browser, then you can view things using their Immersive Reader. And there are some, the purpose of this is sort of broader than just language scaffolding. It's really to help anyone with disabilities related to reading. So they'll have things like dyslexic fonts that, help, or as you can see here, like they'll sometimes color code types of, speech or show different syllables. You can have it spoken to you, things like that. But there are some language scaffolding. So for example, they have some images for some of the words where you can mouse over a word, and they've added some translation features now. So you can mouse over a word and see a translation of that word into another language. So for example, your native language. So this one, kind of like Tom was saying, for some of the other things, this is like, can be useful if you just have a reading you want everyone to go to. It doesn't really, there's no course management like support for this. So you're not going to see statistics on what words people are learning, and students aren't able to like save words and study them later, but it can be really useful for, certain contexts. So then the solution that we've been working on, and we're actually not even selling it quite yet. We have a Department of Education grant to work on it, and we're actually running a study next week when students get back from spring break. They're going to be using this in several schools, but it's a product that I think might be of interest to some of you, and we're hoping to find people that are interested in pilot testing it this school year, and then and we can talk about next school year too. But anyway, let me kind of show you that. I'm going to try shifting or dragging something over to that screen. find my mouse. Okay. Just a second. Okay. So this has, make this bigger. Well, I'll just center it. So this is like a teacher's view. And so in this view, there's a content area. This will probably be slow because I'm running off my phone. But you can upload your own texts and then it will translate them into a number of different languages. And so that students can get educational like scaffolding based on their native language. Oh, now I'm running really slow. Let me pull over the student view just a second. So here's an example of, I'll make it a little smaller. Here's an example of a reading. Okay, here we go. So this would be a text that like a teacher would have already uploaded some article, say on Antarctica, and then they choose words. So these are like teacher assigned words that they want the students to focus on. And again, I'm thinking of like a science teacher or social studies teacher that has some content area academic vocabulary. And then those words are here they show up in this kind of background. And if you mouse over, you can hear them spoken or you can save them to study later. And then we also have this extra level of scaffolding. So here, what we can do is, depending on your level of expertise, because we're imagining this text is going to go to all of the students in the class, some of whom are going to need a little more help than others, we can sort of up this level of help. And then I'm going to make this darker because on the projector here, it's not quite as visible, but see, we have other words get underlined. And these words are just, we don't want to translate the entire thing because then students won't, try to understand the English. So as you slide this up or down, it'll change the number of words that give you that kind of aid. And these words are, we start with kind of flipping the ones that we think will be harder. So you can see like satellite, it's kind of a more difficult word. And we assume that some of the other words. So you can also use the diglot weave feature, which actually flips those into your native language. And there's some research studies that show that can be an effective way of learning, or you can just keep them all in English. Yeah.
How do you upload the documents that you want?
Yeah.
So that it picks different words?
So
or you type those words all
these,
in that are.
These words, we have like a list of like 60,000 words or something right now, based off the general service list and a few other ones, corpuses. And so these underlined ones are just like chosen by the system, so to speak, but these ones that are have a blue background are chosen by the teachers. And that's what I was hoping to show you, but I think I might have gotten logged out or something. Here we go. So there's a content area. And so if you wanted to create content, you could just copy and paste it into here or type it in. Let me show you one that's that we already have. So if I wanted to update this, I could just type or, and format it. And then I can just add words here. So if there's a word, that I want to add, I can just add it there. And then it will be highlighted over here, you can see now. And then that'll show up in their list. And then the other thing that, that we do is we have questions here, so you can add your own questions, and it's just like any other content management system where you add questions and then they can submit those assignments. And that's important, we think, for this intensive reading because it helps them engage with the content. And then once you've saved words, you can go here and look at your words that you've saved. And so, you know, I might focus on ones that are unfamiliar or ones that I've learned, you know, and am in the midst of learning. And then you can choose some and use flashcards, which would allow me to, you know, I can hear them spoken or, you know, look at the translation. Or I can take, practice them with like quiz type questions. I speak Russian, not Spanish, but I'm gonna guess. Okay, good guess. And you kind of get some points depending on how accurate you get it. So if I choose something that's, oops, I was just randomly choosing. If I pick something that's wrong, then, you know, I sort of, you go until you get it right and you won't get points, but at least you'll sort of be forced to do that. And then there's other types of questions. Let me just, they get harder. So these were words that I already, or I don't know yet, but the ones that I, you know, I'm kind of in the midst of learning, I can study those and then I'll get eventually, I don't want to worry about the sound right now, but I'll get some other types of questions that get, these are all pretty easy ones still. Here's an example. So I have to type something in, and if I don't actually know what it is, let's just, I can do check answer and then it'll give me hints. So I can eventually get to the answer and we make them type it in just to make sure that they engage with it. So there's various types of questions that show up. So that, I think I'm out of time, but we'd love to see some of you if you're interested in piloting this. We're like hoping to find some people to help us and just so we can improve it.
Is this K-12?
Yeah, we're looking at really middle school and high school, or maybe upper elementary school, but you know, ones where they're actually doing readings that are significant.
We can have 5 more minutes for questions and answers.
Okay, yeah, other questions? Yeah, I'll put it back in. Go ahead.
One question, so, teacher can choose vocabulary that the teacher's interested in. Now, when you talked about scaffolding for students, are the choices linked in any way to, for example, frequency lists?
They are, so those other words that you see, and I can just hop back over here. And by the way, there's like the course, you know, you can have different courses and different readings assigned for those. So like if I, and there's a grading tool so you can see, you know, what's been graded and see the teacher's comments on them. I didn't really show that. But the question is like really related to these underlined words, right? So this level of how, so that we use the general service list, which is, you know, you might be familiar with, and we bucket those into like easier words and then they get progressively harder. And then that doesn't have enough words. And so then we augment it with another list. And there's two, we look at frequency and then a concept called concreteness, which some of the, you know, the corpus have. And so then we look at like more concrete and more frequent words we bucket in those areas. Oh, we have that as part of it. So general service list and academic word list, yeah. So those are all in there. Yeah. Do you want to set up?
No, well, actually, can we use yours for Hetals?
Yeah, we could totally do that. Do we?
No.
Yeah,
so
that's
for
right.
Hetal,
We can
yes.
keep using that.
Yeah. That's
All right, so I don't want to take up too much time, but you can come to our booth and chat all day long the next few days. So,
Can you
it's in the far back, so it's not the easiest to find. And we don't have our poster until later today, but you can find us.
Can you pull up the Zoom?
Yes, so let me just move this over.
So next would be Hetal Ascher. She is the head EAL programs at Dulwich College, Beijing, originally from Minnesota, and she taught ESL to immigrant and refugee students at a public school before moving to China. Okay, let's welcome Hetal.
And then we'll
Hi, everyone.
Oh,
can you plug this in?
you need, plug this in and, and mute, and I'm gonna mute too.
You'll unmute first.
I'll mute and Hetal will unmute.
Can you hear me okay?
We still can't hear you yet.
Oh, okay.
Yes, over there, but we can hear. We can hear.
Derek's gonna,
Okay.
can you try it now?
Hello, can you hear me?
Hold on, he doesn't have his sound connected.
Okay, no problem.
Recording in progress.
Is it good now? Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, wonderful. Hi, everybody. My name's Hetal, and today what I have for you is a few tips and tricks for using quiz apps collaboratively. Now, I bet that a lot of you have seen some of these apps and websites like Kahoot, Quizalize, or Quizzes. My favorite is Quizzes because it's easiest to use in my opinion. And if you haven't had a chance to explore Quizzes, it's basically like any vocabulary worksheet you might do, but fun and online. So the activity I'd like to share with you all today will get your students working together and get them to practice making reading comprehension or vocabulary review activities. This kind of flips the plan in your classroom and gets the students to be a little bit more of the agents in their learning. And for technology, you do need some technology to do this in your classroom. If you're online or hybrid, it works well, but you do need a place like Google Sheets or SharePoint where all of your students have access to one shared document. And if you're live in a classroom, then each group just needs one laptop. So this is what Quizzes looks like here. To create a new quiz, you just click Create, New Quiz. You do have to sign up and it's free. And once you do that, you click Create Quiz, you type in the name of a quiz that you want to make. And this is why I think that Quizzes is much better than Kahoot, because you can teleport quizzes from the Quizzes library and you just copy paste. So, oh no, it's going without me. You can copy paste from other teachers' quizzes, and that makes it very easy, much faster than other quizzes like Kahoot. However, this still takes time, and if you're like me, I find myself spending maybe 20 minutes making one of these and my students play it in 10 minutes. And so to kind of flip, what you can do is you can get the students to make this collaboratively by clicking on this button that says Import from Spreadsheet. So first you click on Import from Spreadsheet, then you get a pop-up like this. What you want to do here is download the template. The template is an Excel file, which doesn't look really pretty, but it looks like this. You have to be careful with the template. You can't mess with it too much, otherwise when you go to use it later, it won't upload and do what you want. What you can do is change the examples in the green. So this is an example from my classroom. My 8th graders are reading, or actually I think this is with my 10th graders, are reading a novel, and I wanted them to get a little bit of practice with the words that we've been studying in this novel and do a little reading comprehension practice. So I put in a vocabulary question and a reading comprehension question as an example for what I want my students to do. This does take some teaching because at first they won't get it, but eventually they do understand. And they have to put in at least 2 options, and you can add more if you want. You can also change the question type right here from multiple choice to fill in the blank, or many other types. For my classroom, I teach middle school, and for me, simple is the best option. So I just make them all do multiple choice until they have mastered this. And then we can move on to things like fill in the blank. And then they put in the correct answer here. So once you have this template made up so that you're happy with it, you upload this spreadsheet into an area that all your class can work on the same document. Now there's different ways to do this. When I'm with my whole class in person, what I like to do is make just one sheet and then assign different questions to different pairs of students. So maybe questions 5 through 10 go to Hetal and Troy. Actually, this should be question 11 through 15 go to Shayna and Bindu. And that pair is responsible for writing in those lines of the shared document. And if you're opening that shared document yourself, you can see if students are doing it wrong. They're very quick to notice who's doing it wrong and tell each other. And then just a tip, it's always good to have some extra at the end. And then if one group's done early, they can add extra questions. Then the next step is to download the spreadsheet to your own computer and delete it from the shared drive. You should do this step so that the students, when they're playing the quiz, don't have access to the spreadsheet. Any other fears of cheating that I've heard of other teachers mentioning, actually, they haven't, for me, my students haven't tried to cheat on these quizzes by like trying to save the spreadsheet on their own computers or anything like that. They just don't seem that interested in that. But downloading the spreadsheet will prevent that. And after the students have added their questions, at least if your students are like mine, the spreadsheet's always a bit messy. They'll have done some of the questions wrong or forgotten to put in the correct answers, or maybe messed up your sheet a little bit and you have to fix a few things. You do have to keep the formatting, otherwise you can't upload it back. But other than that, once you go through and kind of sort through the questions as much as you are interested in doing, I personally, if the students write a bad question, one that's really hard to answer, or maybe has 2 correct answers, but they've only picked one, I just let that go, because it's a really good learning experience when the students have to actually do that question and the students can kind of have a conversation about why 2 answers might be correct. It's a great discussion opportunity. Then all you have to do is import from spreadsheet, and you get this back again, and this time you upload your spreadsheet. And after that, you get to play your quiz with your class. It's really fun for the students to play a quiz that they made. They take all the time to make it, so you save time from a teacher's point of view. This also works if you have a very large class. It might work better for you to break your students up into groups, like group 1, make 1 quiz, group 2, make another quiz, group 3, make a 3rd quiz, and then you can use them throughout a unit to review vocabulary. And finally, even if you are just making a quiz for yourself on something like Kahoot or quizzes, using the Excel spreadsheet I find is much easier because you can copy paste everything easy, and you can take your answers from previous questions and pull them down, where in Kahoot or quizzes, you have to type them all in every time. So it'll save you time, even if you're doing it just a normal quiz. That's it. I actually think I went through that really fast. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Otherwise, here's my email address. I'll be at the reading and vocabulary intersection networking session as well. So maybe I'll get to catch some of you there. And thanks for beaming me in.
We're waiting to see if there are any questions. Jane, are there any questions anywhere? We don't hear you. You need to unmute yourself. Jane. Jane, you're muted, so we can't really hear. I guess Jane does. Oh, okay,
Hi.
great.
There's no questions from the audience. They all think the presentation was informative and not good. Our last speaker is Charles Brown, and he has pre-recorded his presentation. And Tom is going to play the video right away. As he set up-
Right away, yeah. That would be
As
very
soon as
nice.
possible.
That's more like it. Okay. All right.
So we all know Charles Brown is a professor of TESOL and applied linguistics at Meiji Gakuin University in Tokyo, Japan, and he's a specialist in corpus linguistics, vocabulary, and reading, especially as they apply to online learning environments. I was able to attend Charles's presentation in one of adult calls.
Well, actually,
It was on the new general, new general service.
Yeah.
New general academic word list.
right. Try it a couple more times.
It's most of them. Oh, yeah. Okay, thank you for correcting me. Wonderful. And then all this stuff is
Yes.
online on his website.
I bought a special portable Wi-Fi just so that I could avoid using the Wi-Fi here, and now it's not cooperating. Come on. Okay, I think it's okay. Yeah, all right. Oh, we need to share the screen again. Zoom,
And when you hit share.
share screen.
Then you can click the button down here.
Okay, optimize video clip, share sound. All right, and QuickTime Player, no, QuickTime Player. Share.
Do you find the new list helpful?
Okay, I think we're in business.
Okay, great.
Okay. Oh,
And your
Yeah.
sound you're gonna have to turn off.
Okay, I'll turn it off.
You do it first.
okay. Charlie, can you hear me?
Let me try turning this up.
Yeah,
A large and growing
okay,
collection of
great.
online,
Okay,
learning.
let's start at the beginning.
My name is Charles Brown, and I'm a professor of applied linguistics and TESOL
No,
at
you
Meiji
need to
Gakuin
share this.
University in Tokyo, Japan. And today
You
I'd like
did.
to introduce to you what we are now referring to as the NGSL project, with NGSL standing for New General Service List. And we've been working on this for more than 10 years. And basically what it is a collection of vocabulary lists to help meet the needs of second language learners, along with a large and growing collection of online learning tools, testing tools, teaching tools, and content development tools. All of the tools and all of the word lists are open source and free, so hopefully this will be of some use to you. So the first question is why did I spend so much time focusing on vocabulary? Well, in addition to having done a lot of my master's and doctoral work with Paul Nation, who really introduced me to some of the core concepts, my own experience, more than 30 years in Japan teaching English, Basically, what I found is that two of the major problems that I see both in Japan and in many other countries in the world where students are learning English is, number one, that even after many years of study, students just don't have enough vocabulary words, number one. And when you look closer at the vocabulary words they do have, they're actually often studying the wrong kind of vocabulary, low frequency vocabulary for tests rather than high frequency vocabulary for their daily lives. And the corollary problem is that very often second language learners are exposed to reading materials and listening materials that are way, way above their level. So basically, the new General Service List project is about trying to solve some of those problems. And our focus is on trying to create shortcuts for second language learners. And what I mean by shortcuts is short focused word lists that represent much fewer words than native speakers know, but actually gives much higher coverage than could be expected. Now, what we know from vocabulary threshold research is that you need a minimum of 90% to even be able to begin to read and comprehend texts, with a lot of the other research talking about reading for pleasure at a much higher level of even 95 to 98 or even 99% coverage. But we, as a starting point, the new General Service List project is trying to get at least 90% coverage for all of our word lists. And what you see with the new General Service List is the 2,800 word list, which gives a minimum of 92% coverage for most general English texts, and even higher coverage for some specific ones. Harry Potter, for example, we get about 94, 95%. TV shows like Friends, for example, we get about 95%, and so on. But on average, about 92%. And this is pretty good because the average native speaker, college-educated native speaker, knows about 30,000 words. So the NGSL represents less than 10% of that, and yet gets them over these important thresholds. So, another question is, why do we need a new General Service List? The original General Service List made by Michael West and published in 1953 was a great list, and I used it for many years early in my career. But as I got it in the classroom and got it in front of students, thinking about the fact that this is supposed to be a list of the most important words for second language learners for their daily lives, I realized that the list was getting a little bit dated and had a couple of problems. Number one, that the corpus size was not big enough to give accurate measurement of lower frequency words. Number two, that the corpus itself was quite dated, with many of the texts being pre-1900. And with the English language changing over time, this wasn't represented by the old General Service List anymore. And then third, that the 80% coverage that it offers was not enough to meet these vocabulary threshold targets that we were just talking about. And here's just a few examples of words from the second 1,000 words of the old General Service List. And you can see that many of these words, although interesting for one reason or another, are not necessarily the most important words for second language learners in the year 2020. So, the new General Service List, we were able to get full access to the Cambridge English corpus, which is a 2 billion word corpus with many corpus tools to help us to divide and analyze the findings. And we took a sample of 273 million words using the subcorpora that we thought were most representative of the needs of second language learners, and we're able to get quite good coverage. How could we get such good coverage? Well, this is due to a mathematical principle known as Zipf's law. And what you can see on the right is a 10 million word sample from the Cambridge English corpus, randomly selected. And if you look at the first 2,000 most frequent words in that sample, the blue bar represents 83% of the corpus. 8.3 million out of 10 million words are the same 2,000 words occurring over and over again. And you can see the incredibly steep drop off for the coverage by the next 2,000 words and the next 2,000 words. That drop off is known as the Zipfian curve. And the blue box represents the most frequent, most important words in that corpus. And that's basically what the new General Service List is those blue words. But we made much more than just the new general service list. That's the yellow box at the bottom, and we consider that to be the most important step one for most language learners. But what we tried to do is to create a large and growing number of English for specific purpose word lists. That kind of fit in a modular way with the new general service list. We have lists for academic English, TOEIC English, business English, fitness English, and a few others that are coming out soon. And so what you would do is step one would be to learn the NGSL words, and step two would be to learn the special purpose word list that best fits your needs or the needs of your institution. Okay, so why do we believe that the new general service list should always be step one? And this is because the words in the NGSL are words that occur in the real world. They occur in books and newspapers and TV and radio, conversational English. They occur everywhere. If you were to study only TOEIC English, for example, you might get a high score on the TOEIC test, but after you finish studying, you're not doing really well in the real world. So if you study the NGSL plus the TOEIC list, you're kind of just about the same number of words, but you're getting very good coverage in the real world. So let me just very quickly introduce a few of our special purpose word lists. The first one being the academic word list. And we have a 288 million word academic corpus. A good chunk of it is from the Cambridge corpus, but we also added 3 million words of oral lectures, oral academic lectures, and 36 million words of top-selling academic textbooks. What you can see is that the coverage by the NGSL actually drops a bit to only 86% coverage for academic English. That's because academic English is very, very different than general English. But then if you study the 960 academic words in our new academic word list, you get right back up to 92% coverage again. And we're well aware of Avril Coxhead's 2000 academic word list, which we all think is a great list. And we think, for many people, that's the right choice. But for our modular approach, Avril's list was based on word families, whereas ours are based more on modified lemmas, and the cutoff point is a little bit different. So we needed to create a new one. But you can see from the slide here that the new academic word list is actually offering about 5% more coverage than the old academic word list combined with the old GSL. And so anyhow, we think they're pretty good options if this is the focus of your program. We also created a TOEIC word list because this is a very high stakes exam for students in Asia, and most of our students are kind of forced to take this exam for a variety of purposes. And we were able to create a TOEIC word list from a 1.5 million word corpus of TOEIC English. And with only 1,200 TOEIC words, if you add that on to the NGSL for a total of 4,000 words, you're getting literally 100% coverage, 99% coverage of the TOEIC exam. You can also see that the NGSL is offering 94% coverage for TOEIC, meaning that it's a very excellent first step for TOEIC. Now, TOEIC is supposed to be business English, but actually it's not. It's really just test English. And there's a lot of anecdotal evidence for that. And so the same year that we published the TOEIC service list to help people to pass a TOEIC exam, we also decided we wanted to publish a real business word list for use of business in the real world. So this is the business service list. It's based on a 64 million word business corpus we made. We use web crawlers. We have a huge collection of business magazines, business newspapers. We use the British National Corpus subsection and a large selection of business textbooks. And here we're able to get 97% coverage with just the addition of 1,700 business words. So again, very short, very efficient, very high coverage. The fitness list was not actually our next choice for making lists, but we were actually requested directly by a company. This was a famous American gym chain of gyms that wanted to open their gyms in Japan, and they wanted to try to have the gym be English medium. And they knew that Japanese would struggle with that, so they wanted me to help them to identify a very short list of fitness English words that would give them very high coverage that the instructors could use and that the students could learn, that would help them to conduct the lessons in English. And we were able to do so. And about a 10 million word fitness corpus we created, and it only required about 600 additional words beyond the NGSL to get us up to about 98% coverage. And this list, like all of our lists, is available for free download from our website. We also have two kind of unusual lists. One is the NGSL-S, which is the spoken version of the NGSL. We had several requests after we published NGSL to give out the frequencies for just the spoken subsections, because there are certain college programs that focus just on spoken English. And so we had 11 million words of TV English, 27 million words of unscripted spoken English, and 28 million words of radio English. And we took that and separately calculated the frequencies. And what you can see on the left is that to get to 90% coverage for the full NGSL corpus required about 2,100 words before we got to 90% coverage. But for the spoken corpus, we only needed 718 words. So, very, very short list, very high coverage. The final list we made is called the New Dolce list. And this is a list of 875 words of children's English. And this is to replace the 1936 Old Dolce list, which really was only for the purpose of native speakers, not non-native speakers. But we noticed that a lot of EFL, ESL publishing companies and schools were using the New Dolce list, because the Old Dolce list, because they had no other lists to use. And we thought this would be a good project. And so we just published a few months ago the New Dolce list, and we're able to get about 90% coverage with only 875 words. And this is specifically designed for the needs of second language learners. Now, we also have a website, which is the place to go for all of our word lists and all of our online learning tools. For each list, you can get them you can download them in alphabetized form or lemmatized form, or with frequency data, or with definitions we've written for every word in Easy English. All of our lists we've also made available through free flashcard sites like Quizlet and Memrise. So that's another thing that you can use. We've made a series of free flashcard apps for the new general service list, the new academic word list, and as well as the old GSL and the old AWL. That's called NGSL Builder. And they use spaced repetition flashcards. You can get links to that from our website. The one at the bottom is our brand new app, which is called Word Learner, which is a much more robust app. It has not just flashcards, but also 8 different learning games, a 90,000 word learner dictionary, a learner management system, and testing function. So that's worth checking out too. We also have very good tests for the new general service list and for the new academic word list. These were developed by Tim Stokel and Phil Bennett. There are many, many published research articles on these tests, very high reliability, very high validity, also downloadable from our website. We've just recently created a video concordancing resource. So every word in every one of our word lists is now directly linked to the Youglish website, which gives hundreds of examples of the words being used in real life context. It's a video concordance, and based on the idea of data-driven learning, very fun resource. We've created text analysis tools. One is called the OGTE, Online Graded Text Editor. That's Rob Waring and I developed and put that up. Tom Cobb's vocab profile also has all of our word lists. That's there for you to use as well. There are a number of publishers and software companies that are using our word lists. So there are those kind of resources for you. And Rob Waring and I have also created a free extensive reading website with tons of resources for students and for teachers for doing extensive reading online. The last page of our website lists all of our research articles that have been published on the new general service list. And you can also take a look at the TED Talk I did a couple of years ago, introducing the first 2 of our word lists. So there's a lot there and there's a lot more coming. I hope this was of some use to you. Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's very impressive. I don't know where he gets all his energy. He also cycles around Tokyo early in the morning before breakfast. And let's see.
You wanna?
All right. And now,
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Charles Brown, and I'm a professor of applied linguistics.
stop share. Okay. Finally, I do now have a URL to share with you. Let's see. I'll just type that in a new slide here. HTTPS url.com.
I really like it that Richard has included YouTube, kids' YouTube videos as a source for the new Dolces list. But for the new general service list, for the spoken one, he's only included radio, TV, and the spoken, right? And not including, like right now, the mainstream is YouTube videos. Like so perhaps that's something that we could, further investigate. Yeah.
Yep, that's it. Easy to remember.
Yep. And if you have a question.
Yeah, I would ask Tom if you could say a little more about what is valuable to track as an instructor in terms of student reading. So you just kind of gave a general, keep track of their reading or assign reading. So are you talking pages, books, words, right, or time?
Time would be good, but it's difficult to tell how much time on task they have spent. So normally we just track, it doesn't matter really if it's pages or books or words or whatever, but you need to ascertain that the students are doing the reading, okay? The word count is perhaps the most accurate, but it's the most difficult too, because that's why if you're using EmReader, it has the words there and you can add the words, but otherwise, how many pages? I used to use a system where every book had an adjusted page score. So depending on how many words there were on the page and so forth, it got pretty hairy, but it sort of evened it out. So it didn't matter what you read, you still came out with about the same figure. But yeah, the idea behind the tracking is basically to see that they did it rather than accumulate information for research purposes or to use for assessing how much they've improved.
But if you were interested in that, in other words, growth over time, or if you did some kind of pre-test, post-test, it's good to the word count. In fact, some people are going to, other measures that actually, normalize what is a word. Some are very multi-syllabic and some are not. So, I mean, I thought that with a lot of the research, they're using word count.
They're using word counts because, yeah, that's the easiest to measure. Now there's something called the standard word count, which uses just assumes that every word is 6 letters long and adjusts for that. Yeah. But yeah, my main concern as a in-class teacher is that I want to make sure that they have done the reading. So you can push the ones that haven't and reward the ones that have read more than you expected that they would do.
Okay, and I'm going to push that question then with, well, one of the advantages of extensive reading is that everybody in the class can read, and we know that no matter how they have been put together in a class, they all aren't reading at the same level. So if if you put a page quota or a book number quota or something like this, someone will feel that they have to struggle and put in a lot more time, right? To meet, so I use the time on task.
I was gonna say, we did a bunch of interviews with teachers to find out what, I didn't show you guys the dashboard that shows like the student data, but they like the time on task, like you said, you can't always track it, but if you have an online reader, you can see tasks. And a lot of them like to assign, like do 20 minutes of reading, extensive reading, or do 20 minutes of, this exercise or whatever.
Tom, I missed your presentation, but I can't find the PowerPoint here. We only see the video of the last
Yes,
presenter.
we gotta put them in.
Oh, okay, okay, good. Thank you.
Too quick on the draw.
Okay, good. I'm fond of extensive
Yeah.
reading. So.
Mhm. Yeah, so the Charlie's is there, but I have to put mine in, and Derek will put his in as well.
Nice.
And Hetal will too. And then they'll all be there. Okay. Well, if there are no more questions, no one has
I
any.
have one.
Yes.
So apologize if I missed this again. So with extensive reading, I work at the University of Delaware in intensive English program and English Language Institute. And so there are two ways of extensive reading from my experience on several campuses with international students, undergraduate students. So sometimes I've seen it in my previous place, Virginia Tech. Extensive readings, the choice is the teachers. So the teachers will decide, will give the students a number of reading books, and then the students will choose. But it's like a teacher's guided. So the teacher will decide on the overall list, and then the students will pick. Alternatively, sometimes now I've seen it also with a colleague of mine. There is one imposed textbook. No, not textbook, a reader.
Like a novel.
Yes, it's a book. It's 200+ page, which also connects to one of the units that students have to study. And so they can also use it when they can also use it for a synthesis paper. It would be a source, so they're reading it. But you don't see one way. Sometimes the way I've learned. Yes, so the way, the way I've learned extensive reading and I've read about them in the literature is they should be the student's choice. They're not tested. Also, they're also a way of reading for pleasure. I agree with the 90+% of understanding the context. But you see different ways of
getting
doing
them
it.
to read. Yes. Yes, back there.
I just came from AAA. If you look in the research, you can see the word extensive all over the place. I don't even go to those talks anymore because very often they are not using it in the meaning of extensive reading as we're talking about here. They're using it in extended.
Yes, extended.
Right, so it just means you're going to read a longer text on something which normally they don't do. They read lots of little short text.
Yes, that's
So,
extended. Yeah.
so I think that again, you have to determine it not by what the name they give it to it. What are the principles that are being upheld in the practice? And that is not.
Yes, right.
ER.
Yeah, I understand. That's how my. From one university to another, they'll read you extensive reading, and I'm like, well, that's not. If you're imposing this novel on them, that's not really extensive reading.
Oh.
Now, there's a lot of misunderstanding, and it's actually rather difficult to implement extensive reading because of all these different aspects that you have to have. Book availability, for example.
That really helps. Thank you.
And would you support encouraging students to read extensive reading, for example, and present on it?
Present on it?
Yes. So if it's a book, if the book has several chapters, then you want to encourage or to encourage the students. It's kind of adding some accountability there to make sure they've read
it. One of the
and then
post-reading
discuss.
activities you can have, even if they've read different books, is in class to put them in small groups and have them discuss the books or report on the book or try to sell the book to the other students. Yeah, but not frontal presentations of one to the whole class. That's speaking. If you have to do speaking too, maybe that's fine.
But there's also the integrated skill approach where you make use of the reading through a productive
it's fine.
skill. So you can
Yeah.
combine reading and speaking.
That's fine, but the extensive reading should not be imposed. It needs to be something that some.
No, I agree, yeah.
Okay, well, yes, there's one more.
I know, just to address what you're saying, in my class, I have a library and I get the students to pick a book, whatever book they want. And what I do is they either read on their own or they read to me, and then we discuss it together. That way it's not presented to everybody. That's what we do to work on their vocabulary, whether it's little books, big book, whatever they choose. And they come to me on their own time when they're ready to either read and discuss it.
But are they choosing something that's at their right level? Maybe
Yes.
students generally want to choose something that it's a little more difficult, whereas they should be choosing something that's a little easier.
Yeah, I give them like we have a test that tells them their level. I tell them their level and it's colorful on my wall.
Oh,
so
great,
they know
beautiful.
where
Yeah.
it's from.
Makes sense, yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you. Thank you for attending. And thank you for attending COIS, RVIS,
Pop that
intersection.
in. I made it so anyone can do anything, so.
Yeah, so the link that you shared is, that got